want to live through you. And of course, with young kids, that's not always going to be the case. They're not going to have the verbal skills, but they'll always have the creative skills to express. And so, be the Santa who comes in sometimes with paper. Always have paper and markers with you. How many of you do that? And when you're talking to them, if they want to draw a picture of your favorite Christmas present that Santa ever brought you, or something like that, what you'll do is you'll take the focus off their mouth. You'll get their energy going into drawing in an area that's the strongest way for them to communicate. And their mouth will start going on in ways that you never thought necessarily possible, because you're not focusing on the verbal. And once you take the focus off that, they become verbal. And they'll share things with you, probably that their parents don't want them to. And that's okay too. So you may hear some things, mom and dad are fighting a lot. Dad says, mom's a basket case, or whatever it is. You may hear something, and those are the anxieties and concerns these kids have. They may be afraid if it's a sibling who died or something like that maybe mom and dad aren't going to stay together. They say there's a high divorce rate for that. So be also willing to, if you hear the anxieties, fears, and concerns, be able to at least respond to them in a way that, again, can't solve them, but tell me how you feel about that. Tell me what concerns you. Again, just listen. And know that, again, it's different with adults and children, but adults, we're going to have a physical crisis when we have grief, an intellectual crisis, a social crisis, an emotional crisis, and a spiritual crisis. And that's why I think staying away from religion is really important. But talking about spirituality and how that helps is okay, because it's neutral. You're just asking about what helps them. You can ask kids. I had a kid who said, God took my sister. He needed a new rosebud in his crown. And his sister was just a wonderful child. He was too. But all of a sudden, his behavior changed dramatically. In school, at home. And basically what came down to, he said, is I decided to take myself out of the competition for rosebuds and Jesus' crown. And if only good kids get called up there, then I'm going to do the opposite. But see, the messages were so concrete to this kid that, and that's the way they were talking. And sometimes religious mantras like that are not helpful to kids. They're helpful to adults because we have deeper roots, we can understand. Kids don't understand that. They don't get all that. And so I've had ministers when I was in hospice who said, look, we don't like the way you're representing God in your counseling, and so we like to sit in on your sessions with this child, and which we would never allow. But we also learned to make sure we did not violate religious beliefs and norms. And it's tough to do sometimes. It's very tough to do. Questions about the grief chart, or experience of grief? Yes, sir.
I've got a daughter that's in grade school. There's a lot of bullying nowadays and a lot of suicide. I mean, that silent word, it's a disease, suicide. I guarantee you probably deal with a lot of that too, don't you?
Yeah, suicide's pretty scary because we don't know why, at what point somebody is going to do it. I mean, it'd be great if we said, situation A happens, and then B, and then C, then suicide will follow. But it could be A through X, and then suicide happens, or it could just be A, and suicide happens. And when that happens, man, you talk about leveling the playing field and making us all anxious and fearful that it could happen to anybody. That's messes with your mind a little bit. And again, a lot of people have ideation about wanting to hurt themselves. I remember when I was a kid, many times, thinking, God, I wish I didn't exist, because I knew if my dad got home, I was going to get a spanking. And it was like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I went to bed already, hoping I'd be asleep by 6 when he got there. He had like every pair of underwear in the drawer I had on, thinking that if the going to sleep thing doesn't fool him, then I get a spanking. At least 20 pairs of underwear will make it less painful. Yeah, and you know, but I thought, God, I just wish I didn't exist. But that's really different than making a plan to end one's life. And sometimes with kids, it's not even, they don't realize the permanence of it. Some of these young people who are doing, yeah, it's that permanent solution to a temporary problem. But they're just not even, they're not aware of how final that act is. And had they known, they wouldn't have done it. For example, people jumping off the Golden Gate Bridge. Some people jump off the side facing the lights of the city, and some people jump off facing the dark side. And those who face the dark side die at a higher rate than those who jump off facing the lights. And a lot of them who survived said, as soon as I jumped, I said, big mistake. You know? Or as soon as you pull the trigger, you don't have the option of saying, okay, let me rethink this because it's done. Yes, sir.
Switching gears a bit, I hear a lot of Santas telling me that they pray with children, and that's really not my style. But I wonder. I sometimes think, well, maybe I'm not a very good Santa because I'm not praying with children, and so I'm wondering where prayer comes in to working with children. I mean, I guess I can see positive times if the child says, "Would you pray with me?" or but I think a lot of Santas bring it up first. I'm not sure. That's
great. Does anybody have any thoughts about why, how that happened, or the comfort level with it? I think if you are on similar religious beliefs, Methodist or something like that, but I can imagine, you know, asking a Muslim child, "Can I pray with you in Jesus' name?" or a Jewish kid. That could really be alarming. But
I don't mean that.
Yeah.
Dramatic kind of stuff.
You're just saying in general.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are some thoughts? Yes, we got some good.
I always make a point to find out what the family's religious beliefs are before I walk through the door.
Good.
Then I know my limitations.
Good.
Of course, some of that goes back to being a minister as well. So,
Okay.
you know,
Okay.
if they're Muslim and they want to examine a visit, I would go visit,
Yes.
regardless.
Yeah.
I would educate myself enough to know what I could do with the child.
Okay. Good.
From a male's perspective, if you don't mind, I think that we spend too much time here at Santa Claus trying to volunteer to fix things. And what I hear last night and from you today is we need to be listening. We don't need to present our personal beliefs onto the other individuals. We're supposed to stop back and listen. There's nothing on that bottom line that says we can fix it.
Yeah.
Now, we should probably be listening to our wives and come from the feeling side of it instead of wanting to fix it. And I personally believe that sometimes we can spend too much time with children because we're dictating or telling them what our beliefs are versus, again, listening to them. So please comment and correct me.
No, I think that's really great information. That's why I think sometimes having a child creatively involved in something while you're with them, having Play-Doh that they can just push on, or drawing, or something like that, you know, magic markers and paper. I think that's kind of where the distraction is. They're creating and they're talking, and you're just listening and you're being with them. What you being there fixes something, right? It fixes something. It may not fix the situation, but they are feeling something that feels satisfied, they feel heard. Santa's listening. Sometimes that in itself is that's the goal of being here.
Too often when you ask a child what they want, too often it's they want the time with you. They want to listen. It's not sometimes the physical or personal things. It's, no, I want time because now I've got my Game Boy, I've got my TV, and that's it. I don't get personal time.
Yeah, yes. Yeah, we become high tech and low touch. And that has probably been the most detrimental thing to our youth today, is that you can't replace those two things. That high touch still has to be a top priority. Somebody else have a hand up over here. Yes, sir.
Well, what I hear you saying things, just listening. is fixing.
Yes.
And everybody may have seen or a lot of the nail in the head. It's a little video on the internet of a woman with a nail in her head. And she wants to tell her husband, who just got home from work, about how she's feeling, you know. The pain she's feeling, she's got a terrible headache, all this stuff. And he wants to fix it right away. And she says, no, just step back. You don't need to fix anything. I just want, just listen to me, for crying out loud. And it's very entertaining, or it hits that nail right on the head. Okay? Bam. And I try to, it's an analogy, but I think there's a lot of truth there. Just listen.
And they can say things to you they can't say to their parents. Like when I was young, I couldn't say the things that I needed to say to somebody for support to my parents. They were too devastated that my sister had died. I would not even think about putting that on their plate. And so, God, how wonderful would it have been if Santa could come to visit just to hang out with me, so we could be involved in an activity and my mouth could just run about my anxieties and my fears. And that's what the kids need, you're right. By bringing up your presence and empathy to them, in a way you're fixing it. By admitting you can't fix it, you somehow get a handle on being able to fix it. Does that make sense? Take fixing it off the table, and then somehow the confidence, your anxiety lessens, you become a better listener, you're relieved. I'm glad I can't fix it. All I gotta do is listen to me. And somehow that's what takes care of it. That's what fixes it on that emotional level. I mean, it doesn't make the situation different, except this child has been able to dump some stuff and gets an adult to just kind of confirm and validate and normalize that it's okay to feel that way. Yes, sir.
When I'm dealing with people, or people are dealing with me, I usually know how to fix the problem myself. And I'm giving them the problem, and talking to them, and just sharing with them. And they don't give me any advice. I know the answer, and I know how to do it.
You're right.
And the same thing when I'm talking to them, I don't give them any advice, I just listen to them and they say, yeah, that sounds pretty good. They already know the answer.
If they can talk enough, they'll get some perspective and some relief. And a lot of it is just emptying that room with all that stuff.
Yeah.
Just a place to dump it in front of Santa, and it's okay. Santa's okay with it. That gives perspective. Because when a kid gets it all out, they can then kind of relook at things and reorder things in a way that they can be focused on. And sometimes you can leave them with things, you know, that they can do to help relieve some of the stress, or to kind of remind them who their support system is, which could be a good friend at school, or the babysitter, whoever it is, and that they do have some people to talk to once you leave.
If they do ask you some tough questions,
Yeah.
just have to be honest with them. If there's something you can share with them that might help, fine.
Yeah.
But if it's something you can't, you say, I really don't know.
It's okay to say I don't know.
What do you think?
I did, absolutely. I think it's dangerous to say something when you don't know.
So,
I mean, it's dangerous. But being comfortable with that is the question. And until you have that comfort level and your anxiety drops to having to fix it, you may find yourself struggling as you're sitting there listening, thinking, what do I need to say? How can I make this better? What can I do? Sometimes normalizing and validating is really what they need. That's the gift they need. I'm not losing my mind. I didn't cause this to happen. Because a lot of kids have magical thinking. You know, I wish, many times wish my brother would die or be taken away when we were kids and he'd get all my stuff. Wish he didn't live here. Well, what if he didn't get hit by a car the week after that or something? I would have been convinced in my mind that something I said or did caused that to happen. That's something you can reinforce with kids. That nothing you think, nothing you say makes things happen. Then, on the other hand, I worked with a kid who started a fire in his house, and his brother died in the fire. So I couldn't say that with him. We had to go to intention. We were playing with matches. You do not intend to catch the house on fire, but there's still a lot of guilt.
Yeah.
So kids need to be able to know that they can cause it. In fact, that's okay. So a few other answers, sir.
Yeah, I've got two things.
Okay.
One, share an experience that I had a couple of years ago. We were visiting, most of the patients that we saw were palliative care. And I would say most of them didn't even know that I was there. But I was there for the mother, and I was there for the siblings and so forth. But I had an incident where we went there and this child, I think it was the oldest one, and I believe he had a terminal illness, and we went there and we brought this for the siblings and so forth. But this child, and he was probably preteen, didn't want to have anything to do with me. And his mother tried to get him to engage, and he absolutely did not want to engage at all. And I felt somewhat uncomfortable about being there, because here's this child, and we're there with the child, but he doesn't want me here. So how do you deal with something like that? And the other thing that I wanted to know is, I've never had it asked of me, but I'm afraid when a child will come to me expecting me as Santa Claus to take care of everything, you know? Bring back, or to be able to fix his health so that they can go on it, you know? And I don't know exactly how I would do it.
Yeah, and I mean, that's tough, but that's not why you're there. But yet, think about it, in the magical thinking of children, and Santa if you can go all over the country in one night and deliver all those gifts, surely you can, help me regain my health, or you can help bring someone back to life. And that's tough, and how you handle that is going to vary, and kind of switch into conversations. So tell me about your health. Tell me what's going on. Tell me what concerns you. What's those kinds of things allows a child to at least deal with the losses. And because think about it, we talked about loss from a child who can still go outside to a child who now is inside the house. What does it feel like to not be able to go outside anymore? What do you miss about being outside? Well, I miss playing in the dirt. Well, maybe we can bring some dirt in a bucket, and you can plant some things that that can be planted at some point. And helping kids to live as much as they can until they can. To a child who's living in a bed and can't even go into the other room. So it's tough to think about that, but your goal when you're working with a child who's dying, if it's possible, is to think about how much living do they still have and what can they do. Where would you like to go before you can't get in a car? Now, I do that a lot with adults, and I think with kids it might be they just want to go down to Baskin Robbins and get a scoop of Rocky Road again. Just being there and kind of helping a child and the family to have the courage to make that happen. But that's tough. There are no easy answers, folks. I wish I could tell you that if you say A, B, and C, that child's going to be satisfied. Those are the toughest questions to have to deal with. And I think just being comfortable with the fact that you don't have answers to everything can give you the confidence to sort of talk about how they're feeling about the situation versus changing the outcome. I don't know if there's a better way to say that, but I hear what you're saying. And if you come to a situation where the child, the subject, is not interested in Santa being there, I think that was poor planning on whoever planned it. Yeah, maybe that was not what needed to happen. And so, you have to wonder what was the goal behind that and who requested it. Because that sounds not to be uncomfortable.
Well, in response to that, the mother did say, I didn't know you were coming. And we were told that they did know that we were coming and asked for us on a specific day. Yeah. And when we showed up, she said, nobody called.
Do you guys ever call to confirm? Just this is the sand I'm calling. So that chances are, had you done that, that would not, I would strongly recommend that because you're right. What you're being told and what they know may be two separate things. And when you call to confirm that this is Sandra Bob and I'm coming out tomorrow to visit the family, just want to make sure that this time is still good.
Right.
And you might, oh really? I didn't know that. And then you could have a conversation and maybe we postpone this for a while. Until we figure out what you think. Sure. John, how are we doing on time? I know we got to take a
Yeah,
break.
we'd like to take a break in about 5 minutes.
Okay.
But just, if I could interject one thing.
Yeah.
You all know that we have asked you, where possible, to become hospice volunteers. One of the reasons to do that is that you can go visit adults who are hospice patients and practice some of these skills. When you go and visit an adult, adults will understand the adult conversation you're trying to have. Sometimes those visits are equally emotional to visiting a child. It allows you to, in effect, stretch your emotional muscle so that you get to know what that feeling is and how to get yourself through it. Because we all have different techniques and tricks that are just personal to us that kind of help us through tough times. So, again, that's why we encourage you to go be a hospice volunteer and go visit adults. Go visit the 80-year-old lady that doesn't have any family. They will be delighted to see you. So.
Okay, thanks. So we got about 5 minutes, and I see 2 questions, then we'll try to get one more thing covered. Yes, sir.
One thing, I had a learning experience at hospice. I was asked to come to hospice and go around. We had somebody at hospice that was taking me around the rooms that you can see. All of a sudden, the man comes out of the room. He was not a hospice employee, but was a minister. And he said, there are 2 adult children here, and their father is going to die in a few hours. They could really use SAM visit. I made the mistake of relying on him. I went into the room, and it was very obvious that was the last thing that they wanted. And I told myself, if that ever happens again, I would say, have you answered it? And they say, yes. Otherwise, I would never go in there.
That's great wisdom. When someone tells you that somebody desperately needs something, make sure they've asked. Because it may be his own needs. Maybe he was just trying to get out of there, get you in there so he can go take a break. Because that's a pretty intense time to be around kids when they're adult kids when their parents dying. So yeah. So there's a lot of things. Calling before you go, confirming that you've talked to the person who they're asking you to visit and they agree that that would be a good thing. Yeah, there's a lot of awkward situations you guys can find yourself in, I'm sure. You could write a book on that. There was another question. Yes, sir.
Just 2 things. From what John just said, I realized I treat adults and children as that 6-year-old. And I never think of them as an adult because I feel it's that child in them, in the adults, that wants to see Santa.
I'm not going to argue with that. I
And
think there's a lot of wisdom and comfort.
And I believe if I would, that's how I will always deal with everybody. But also to swing it back around to the religious question, are we as Santa, when we bring our religion or our ministering or whatever to it, is that our adult stuff? Bringing it to that child instead of, if the child says, will you pray with me, Santa? And I just said, why don't you pray and I'll be here with you. And let them, I'm listening to their prayer. I'm doing that listening thing you're talking about instead of ever bringing up religion to start with or ministering or anything.
That's right.
And that's that 6-year-old or 5 or 4 saying what they want to me, and I'm responding by hearing their request.
I think that is wonderful because think about it as adults are saying, tell me about what about your spiritual life is helpful? What about your spiritual life may be difficult right now? When you ask a kid who's asking you to pray with them, you say, I'll tell you what, you say the prayer, and I'll say amen. I mean, you can offer to do that or something like that. And that way you're getting to see their religious beliefs. You're getting a sample of that. And there may be some real strong messages that you hear about some real rigid thinking about where that person is, what it means, especially if it's a suicide. You know, I've heard people in church say, I'm really sorry that your child's burning in hell because he killed himself. And these are friends.
Yeah.
And these are friends. So yeah, I think that would be the ideal situation. As I said, you say the prayer, close it. But just with one word. Okay.
Yeah, one
Boy. Okay, hold
One
on.
thing real quick.
Okay.
I found a special niche for Santa Claus. We have a lot of special needs adults in our area. And when we have their family in hospice or they're having to deal with grieving, bereavement, special needs adults such as the Downs, whatever issues they have, they listen to Santa Claus. They love it. They like to see us there. Mrs. Claus goes out and visits with them as much as that. But special needs adults will love and
Yes.
treat you like you not believe.
Oh yeah. You will not have a bigger fan
Yep.
than a special needs child. I mean, and believe me, they got the best of both worlds. They don't worry about the house payment, car payments. They're the most happiest and content people. And again, focusing on their developmental age, man, they're wonderful.
My mom died, and I was my dad crying. You know, let's talk about
Okay, we'll go to these last two and then we'll take a break, John. Yes, sir.
I had a question more about hospice opportunities, so I don't know if this is the right time for that.
Sure.
Starting the process of applying, I've applied, but I haven't had an interview yet.
If it's all right, let's hold that until tomorrow.
Perfect.
Tomorrow afternoon,
Yep.
those are some of the things that we're gonna talk. We're gonna
Good.
talk Santa America business, if you will, tomorrow, and that's kind of part of that. How to
Talking
get
about-
into a hospice organization.
Yeah, and my question is, how to use that opportunity the best effect?
What I have done and the way I got started, I went to become a hospice volunteer, period. You walk into the room to do their hospice training, they take one look at you and they know who you are.
They'll figure out how to use it.
But my first volunteer experience was literally just going to what the organization called 11th Hours, being a friendly visitor. Go visit with somebody and I get assigned a patient and go visit a gentleman, and we visited for 6 or 8 weeks until he passed. And once you do that, and they kind of know who you are, and this kind of gives it away, then it opens up other opportunities. I'm also blessed that the hospice that I work with has the largest pediatric hospice program in the area. So, and they are, I can't tell you how good they are. So, anyway.
Can I take it back on it?
Yeah, go ahead.
I also have been turned down by hospices. They said, no, we don't want a December hospice person. We want somebody 365 days a year to talk to young and old and train you. We don't want to put our resources into you for 1 week or 2 weeks out of the year.
Yeah,
And-
and the grandkids is where there's adults time, there's young kids in the picture somewhere. But you're right, you go as a volunteer, and then the standard part becomes better defined. They'll find ways to use it, yeah.
And understand, as an example, Helen and I pick up the leftover baked goods at Panera Bread every other Friday night and take them to Hospice House. So we go to Panera at 9 o'clock when they're done and load out all the leftover stuff, take it out there and deliver. It doesn't take us very long, but that's one of our hospice jobs. Helen goes and cleans up the laundry room at Hospice House every other week. I do legacy recordings and facilitate those. So we're involved in lots of aspects of the hospice, and it just becomes a natural fit.
And I will say, one of the advantages of us both being hospice volunteers is HIPAA. If I was not a volunteer, he can't come home and tell me anything. Anything. I can't know if it was male, female, what happened to them, but now we can talk, so it's kind of nice, especially when I was doing 11th Hours, I can come home and talk to him. So even if all I did was the family room, the laundry room, but at least we can talk, because HIPAA is you know, that's the biggest thing is protecting
deep
those people
compression.
and their privacy. I can't even tell
Yeah.
them if the person died.
And the other piece is the decompression part that we talked about, and we'll talk about more over the next however many hours, so.
You need people to decompress, with no question about that. You need to know who they are, and don't wear anybody out. But you all have friends that you can say, hey, let's have coffee once a week, because that would be normal, it would be natural. And this time when we meet, you just ask me how I'm doing, and I'll go from there. I just need someone to listen to me. Set that up in advance.
Yeah, and the other thing is, like I said, because of the relationship I have with Kansas City Hospice, they will send me that medical sheet. It's usually 1 to 2 pages long. But we've got a method to do that securely, so it's not open email. When I get it, I read it, I take the information that I need, and then I shred it.
Yeah.
And there's no problem with that, so.
All right, this has been the longest 5 minutes. Did you have a comment you wanted to make?
All that, I gotta find it again. Now, when I talk to ministers, and they come time and say a prayer, they'll ask me, I'll pray with them, I can share. What they'll do is, what I've talked to them about is they'll repeat back what we talked about. And they'll acknowledge the higher power, and they'll ask that higher power to acknowledge the problem I'm having and to see if they can, the higher power can do something.
Yeah.
And it's just a reiteration of my needs.
Yeah.
And if you're talking to a child, what if the child's 3, 4, 5, if they wanted a prayer, you have to listen to what they, and you'd have to do what they ask for. What they want. The gentleman over here said, well, what if they ask me? They might look at you as a god. You have to, I'm not
And they do.
I'm Santa Claus, and I don't have that power.
Yeah, but they don't.
Yeah, but you have to tell them
Yeah.
in a loving way.
Yeah.
And I've had that happen.
Well, I think it's doing what you're comfortable with.
Yeah.
If that works for you, then do it. And like you said, if you're paying attention to the cues, and if it works for you to say, you say the prayer and I'll close it with amen.
Yeah.
But that's a wonderful way, because it just allows you to hear and support. May even give you some more thoughts about things you can ask them about, especially if they're drawing a picture.
Mm-hmm.
You can sort of integrate some of the things you heard in the prayer onto the picture. The picture will say,